FAAM, Filipino American Association of Michiana. Guess what? It didn't always start as that on title. The first name of the club was People's Power for Progress. And what happened was, in February 26, 1986, I had half a dozen Filipino families in my kitchen. I had asked them to come over because weeks and days before that, CNN had been coming up with breaking news about the political upheaval in the Philippines. And as the whole world knows, there was those weeks where the citizenry from different walks of life, from the elite municipalities of Makati down to the middle class, made up of professors and small businesses and students, and the lower class coming from the slums, had gotten together and had decided that it was time for the dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos to be done with. And so, faced with the option of having another 20 years of him, the citizenry walked the avenue known as EDSA, Epifanio de los Santos Avenue, which is an acronym for the name of a hero that lived about a century ahead. So they were confronted by the military of Marcos. You've got tanks and armed forces on one side and a hapless citizenry on the other side. This, you are thinking of a metaphor of evil, good and evil, power and right. And so finally the people said enough. And so the upheaval to remove Marcos from his president from Malacanang Palace happened. It was at this junction where, in my kitchen, I had invited these Filipinos to come over and have dinner with me while we were watching this being exposed in CNN. And then while we were having a sumptuous dinner of adobo and the turones and pastels, Dr. Bart Saucelo was seated right in front of me at the dining table. And then he asked me, while the others were busy looking at CNN, in between mouths full of adobo, he asked me, this is Bart Saucelo, a diminutive physician from the middle island of Samar in the Philippine group of islands. He asked me, and I remember the words that he said, we look at the historical drama before us, and he says, what do we do, Meg? What can we do? I couldn't answer that because I wasn't ready to. And what should we do? But from that question comes the idea that if our own people in the islands are so frustrated and hopeless and wanting to become the democracy they once were, then it is only fitting for Filipino Americans who enjoy the comforts and convenience of American society to do something about it. And so he asked me again, what can we do, Meg? And I said, ask me that question tomorrow and I'll give you an answer. And so we got it there. And we went all home silent with the fact that we had to do something. So overnight I thought and thought and thought. We only knew about a dozen families in the area. And with that starting family, Bart and I started calling out and trying to figure out who else was in the area, that we could come together and find and figure out something that will show our solidarity with people back home. And so the idea of forming a club, at that point in time, it was political in nature because of the EDSA upheaval. But eventually, we said that if we are to maintain a club that understood that we want to have peace, then we should come up with a name that also understands that we're not just being political, we're being social and civic. And so the idea of forming a club with how many Filipino families were in the area started. It is to Bart's credit that we now have this club. And during the genesis of 15, 20, 25 years and 30, we now have an organization that we can call our very own, with its own distinctive identity, participating in local and regional activities that reflect on the ideals of the Filipino.